From feedback given in week 3 after my submission, I was able to look at my mood board and continue to develop I suppose, from one of my interests into my rationale, I guess. Um, the driftwood, which I explained previously, was a big aspect of what I do, I guess, with my burnings and pyrography. And, I've slowly been recycling all this and adding value to it already. So, doing so, I was able to finalize my brief, design and make an artifact using waste and end of life and or reclaimed material that contributes to the effort preventing cigarette butts from entering the ocean. So that links back to where I'm from, the beaches and the sea. So I'm using the driftwood as my material, which comes from the sea, recycling, and then I'm keeping the cigarettes out of the beaches and the water, basically. Um, so I did some researching on what can be done, um, going through, and I found a company in America that actually recycles every little bit of the cigarette. You can read up more on that there, and reuses it and actually makes products that are uh, usable in, I guess, every day. So I analyzed existing cigarette holders, looking at an everyday kind of outside the pub or in a public place. Lock up top, hinged out, and you empty it into the bin. This one is a lock on the bottom here, and you empty it downwards. And there are some key aspects of each, comparing and contrasting both there. I then went and actually found a nice piece of driftwood at home. It came from a boat, fishing boat more than likely. The way it's shaped and the structure of it is quite a large piece of wood that we found on the beach. So here's another thought. So from my last submission, I've continued to push my initial ideas onto investigation, from research onto developed ideas, and from research onto investigation as well. So I'm pushing on to the create, moving on to finalizing some ideas. So there was my first design, very basic, very blocky, had the key aspects, still some things to work out. I did some more research. I looked at finding out where my wood came from. So there's a bit of forestry history in Ireland. Roughly when the wood looks like it would have been grown. So grown in the early 20th century. I'd say from the size of it, it was processed maybe in the 50s and 60s by boats were still being made out of wood back then, the internal structures. So boats from then would have been used in fishing, and the wood that would have been grown roughly in the early 20th century would have been on demand then for making boats. So the wood was in the boat for many years. The boat then would have been damaged or shipwrecked, and then this piece of wood came loose. As it was loose out of the sea, the shipworms burrowed into it or bored into it, where they had safety, and then they filtered passing by water. And then we found it on the shore at home in Inishmore, and we brought it up and dried it out in the shed for about a year and a half before we used it in our kitchen, as shown here. So right around the extractor fan, adding feature, and then in the doorsteps into the kitchen. So they're nice features in our kitchen at home. So now, using that leftover piece, I started to process. So then I continued to research some on the shipworms, their structure, what they do, why they do it. They bore in with this end, embed themselves in the wood, and then filter the water passing by. So then this last week 5, I processed the material, and then so brought it down to size, squared it up, and started to reveal some of the damage done. So then, shown here, you can see where all the shipworms embedded themselves right down deep in the wood, and they had filters going out from there. And then I glued it up, cut into board, glued it up, and then that's the current state. From feedback in the labs, I developed my idea. My main feedback was it was very boxy, so I looked at some more research into shapes and what they look like currently, modern sizes, measured in liters, weights, shapes and designs, so I could use these to further my design. So I found a recycling a recycling firelighter tin at home at my granny's, and she had 2 or 3 got, I think. So I just grabbed one, and that would be my fireproof uh, internal structure for my bin. Here's some developed ideas: trying to get rid of this boxiness, rounding out, talk to Richie. These are definitely easily done. Square them off a bit, and if I can't use the spindle router, I'll be able to round them by hand, basically, which shouldn't be too bad. I'll just plane them down. But yeah, so working on that still, trying to get some sizes there, and working on the actual final design. So continue trying to compare existing ones to mine and trying to get some ideas from there, and still developing that. So next up is final sizes, working out the small details, and then going on to actually making the bin.